Hey folks, Scott Nolan here with a quick courtroom story and then a couple of points on what not to do in a courtroom. Many years ago, when I was a beginning attorney, I had a client. For the purposes of this story, we'll call him John Smith. Now, John was huge. I'm a pretty tall guy, but John was well over 6.5 feet tall. He towered over me. And, let's just say he wasn't the brightest guy I've ever had as a client. And he was accused, I honestly at this point I don't even remember what. I think it might have been drug dealing. But the case against him wasn't particularly strong. I thought we had a reasonable chance of prevailing at trial until John decided to get in on the act. To court, he wore a belt buckle the size of a hubcap. And emblazoned on that belt buckle was a marijuana leaf bigger than my hand. And he was really quite upset with me when I told him he couldn't wear it into court. And I said, listen, I don't care whether you like it or not. The jury is going to think if you're dumb enough to wear that into court, you're dumb enough to do what you're accused of. So finally I got him to get rid of his belt buckle. Don't worry, we got him another belt. And so as the trial begins, there's almost nobody in the courtroom except the court officials, the lawyers, John, and the 20 or so people who are being chosen for a jury. That's the point at which John flips out. He sees that there's more than 12 jurors and ignores the fact that I've explained to him who these people are and starts screaming at them, the people who are about to be his jury. Who the heck are y'all? No, he didn't use the word heck. You ain't my jury. You're trying to cheat me. No, he's towering over these people who are suddenly terrified for their lives. And the judge is saying to me very, very calmly, Mr. Nolan, please control your client. I'm thinking, how? How do I control this guy? Meanwhile, he's starting to yell at everybody in the courtroom. There were these two young people, I assume they were high school students, sitting in the very back of the courtroom. They were the only people in the back of the courtroom. And he's saying, who the heck are y'all? Again, he didn't say heck. You ain't my witnesses. And he's screaming at them, and they're just terrified. They're looking up at him like, oh my God, are we going to die right here? And then the fun really begins. As the judge is standing up, he's got a bulletproof bench, but that doesn't help the deputy who doesn't have a bulletproof bench, or the clerk. And he's saying, while pressing the little emergency button under his desk, he's narrating to the jury how he doesn't want to leave, but that the court requires him at this point to leave so that the deputies don't have to protect him. And meanwhile, everybody's just thinking, Judge, get the heck out of here. So it's this weird narration the judge is doing. Meanwhile, my client has decided that he's going to take off, but rather than taking off for the obvious place, which is the exit, he's going to go back and forth through the empty benches of the courtroom. And it wasn't a huge courtroom, but there were like 15 or 16 of these benches. So he's running back and forth. Meanwhile, the deputy, who's half his size, is chasing him back and forth. Finally, just as my client is about to go out the door, the deputy tackles him. Now, my client, as I said, is about 6'6", and he easily went 340 pounds, somewhere in there. Big guy. The deputy is about 5'6", and I doubt very seriously if he passed 160, even in his full uniform. And so he made no effect whatsoever on my client, who wore the deputy like a backpack as they went out the door of the court. This was in the Fairfax Circuit Court. However, there were a whole lot of deputies waiting for him right on the other side of that door. He ran into a wall of brown uniforms. And to their credit, because I would have gotten out of this guy's way, I did get out of this guy's way, these deputies tackled him. But he was like a machine. He just kept moving. I saw deputies holding onto his ankles, his thighs, his back, his arms, and he just kept moving toward the exit. Now, we were on the 3rd floor, and the elevator was 100 feet away. And I'd say he made it almost halfway there before the deputies had finally had enough and hit him with a stun gun. The problem with that is there's all these deputies holding on to him, and everybody got a little piece of it. And it didn't stop him. They had to stun him 2 or 3 times before he finally calmed down enough for them to cuff him. Meanwhile, he's yelling at the top of his lungs, "I'm not John Smith! I'm not John Smith! They're trying to get me and I'm not John Smith!" So they've got my client subdued and yelling his head off out in the hallway where everybody in all levels of the courthouse can hear him yelling. And I went out and I suggested very nicely that the best idea was for him to shut the heck up. I didn't use the word heck. And he started yelling, my lawyer, Scott Nolan, told me to shut the heck up. And the deputy said, yeah, and it's good advice too. Eventually they dragged him away, and the judge ordered that we were going to impanel a new jury. I said, Judge, there's nobody in this courthouse that didn't hear him yelling his name. You can't put anybody on his jury. The judge agreed. And so they dismissed it for that day. They continued it to another day, and between then and the scheduled trial, we made a deal with the prosecutor because there was no way I was bringing this idiot back into court. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what not to do in court. Now, if you'd like some more practical advice, wear reasonable clothing. Go to court dressed like you're going to a job interview. You are literally about to be judged. Dress accordingly. If you don't have fancy clothes, that's fine. Just wear something that shows respect. Don't wear a t-shirt with a message on it. Next thing is, don't bring your kids to court. Find a babysitter, find a relative, find a friend who can watch that child. Judges have told me again and again that they do not take more pity on a single mom with a child. They believe that that person is trying to manipulate their emotions and are inclined to be harsher. Leave your child at home. Besides, a courthouse is no place for a child. If you're waiting a long time in a courthouse or a courtroom, you get bored, you want to go out and smoke a cigarette, call your mom, whatever, there's only one really important rule, and that's tell your lawyer where you're going to be. Because the judge is going to ask us, and if we say, I don't know, they're going to put out an arrest warrant for you, even if you're just outside smoking a cigarette. Lastly, and most importantly, the thing you should never do in a courtroom is start talking to your lawyer in the middle of trial. Don't tug on their sleeve. Don't start telling them that the thing the witness just said is incorrect or a lie, or try to explain it. Your lawyer should know all of that stuff by that time. When you're talking in this here, the lawyer's not listening to what the witness is saying and can miss that critical piece of evidence that could have won you your case. Almost every time I'm in trial, my client wants to tell me, yeah, but she didn't say whatever. When you go to court, bring a notebook, bring a pen. When you're sitting there in front of the judge or the jury and you have something to say to your lawyer, write it down, pass it to the lawyer, and let them look at it when it's safe to do so. You're paying that attorney, or at the very least you are relying on that attorney to understand the entire case. And if they're missing part of what the witnesses are saying, and this, I'm only saying this because it happens every single time. If they are missing what the witnesses are saying, they're missing something that's important to your defense. All right, folks, if you have any questions about what to do or what not to do in a courtroom, give me a call. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. You have a nice day.